Adrian, it's a pleasure to have you back on the podcast, sir. How you doing?
Hey, Adam, how's it going? Yeah, really good. Thanks for having me back.
Good, good, good. No, you're welcome. It's always a pleasure, mate. Always have a good time.
Yeah, yeah. How was your Christmas?
Yeah, it was really well. Yeah, what did I do? Yeah,
Well,
just chilled
hopefully
with
nothing
fam.
except eat and drink. Yeah.
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah, just my mum got me a bottle of Grey Goose for Christmas, so I was just kind of like sampling that.
Sampling. Please drink
Yeah,
responsibly, kids.
yeah, yeah, exactly. In moderation.
In moderation.
But did you have a good Christmas as well?
Yeah, yeah. It was nice. It was family orientated and it was just nice, really nice, which I think is as good as Christmas as any, to be reflective and to be around family and friends. So
Mm.
it's good.
Yeah, yeah, no, definitely. And I hope people listening had a good Christmas as well, and
Yeah.
have a good new year. And yeah,
Yeah,
just
I know it's really different for a lot of people this year. I mean, we're stating the obvious, but nevertheless, it is different for people. They haven't been able to see the same people that they would have done last year, and it will have definitely been a lot quieter for everybody. But I think that if we just look at the positives, look at the bright side,
mm,
as much as we can, then we look forward to next year when we hope it'll be very, very different,
mm,
and at least use this time to have spent the time closer with family members that perhaps we are living with or are in the bubble with. So
mm,
you know,
yeah,
different
yeah,
isn't necessarily bad. It can be good. It depends on our perspectives.
yeah. No, definitely. I agree with you, and I think it definitely makes you grateful for your family and your friends and those people around you, doesn't it? Like
Yeah,
I was going to bed last night, and I was just like, thinking about past week, and my family, and I'm grateful to have it, even though like we can't do those things that we usually do, like when we go out and things like that.
yeah.
There's still nice things to take away, kind of from that, isn't there?
Yeah, and it's nice to have a break from tradition, in a way, or from the regular. So that's what I've looked. That's how I've looked at it this year. Is we haven't done things the usual way, and that's not a bad thing.
Mm. Yeah,
We perceive it as a bad thing to begin with, but we have to change our perceptions and say, well, okay, it's going to be different, but let's look at the positives.
mm. Yeah. No, that's it. And like people have got more time now to spend with their family or friends that they
Yeah,
probably didn't before, and so
yeah.
there's
The ones who
always
are in there or in their bubble, yeah, definitely.
yeah, yeah, yeah. No, that's it. But before we start recording, like I know we talk about lots of different kind of topics, and it kind
Yeah,
of flows really well.
yeah,
That you mentioned this article, a post you put on LinkedIn earlier, and we was talking about jobs and how some like jobs have a very complex. So would you say job description or
yeah. I mean, we're talking about coming off the back of the Christmas message sort of thing that we're just talking about just now, and how people are experiencing a different kind of Christmas, a different New Year, and it's been a different year for everybody. Work, careers, jobs, the future is definitely going to be centered more around the vulnerable, and by vulnerable I mean potentially all of us. People have been affected. This has affected their mental health. I mean, there was an article in The Guardian recently that, I'm paraphrasing here, I can't remember the title, but it was essentially,
try and search it?
yeah, I think it was on either today's or yesterday's Guardian newspaper that said mental health has been affected by COVID-19 and has affected more people more than at any other time. People's mental health has been affected more by COVID now than at any other time since World War II. So even if you don't believe that, what is true is that people's mentality has been changed. People's behaviors have been changed. It has altered people's lives. And the knock-on effect is that people have become vulnerable through fear, through paranoia, through actual physical health, through physical illness, through the lack of being around their loved ones, their friends, and work, careers. All of this is going to change. It's already started to change, and therefore there's going to be more and more job vacancies for people in sort of the caring sector, if you will. And even if it's not in the caring sector, the job descriptions themselves may change to include, to be more empathetic, sympathetic, more caring, all the soft skills in order to deal with people, everyday people who've been affected by COVID. And leading on to what we were talking about before, I saw this job advert, which is to help the young and the vulnerable in society. And I saw this job description, and it really it really threw me, because something I'm very keen about in my own little world is trying to communicate with people, everybody, trying to get everyone to understand one another, trying to be able to get points across to each other, trying not to be misunderstood, misinterpreted, because communication is so important. This is how wars are started, for God's sake. So if we can all understand one another, we can all reach a certain level, then we can all understand one another. We can all understand where we're coming from, and perhaps we'll actually even learn something. We'll see other people's perspectives rather than see it as, I don't know, an act of trolling or something like that, or an act of criticism. So yeah, I saw this job description, and I'll just read it out to you here. I was thrown, because this is supposed to help. We're looking for work. A lot of people, so many people are out of work. And maybe this job would be great for somebody. It would just, the job title would probably be perfect for someone. But then you read the job description, and, well, you tell me what you think. So here it goes. And I've only taken one paragraph from the entire description, because the rest is just, oh my word. Okay, so here we go. You will have the ability to manage complex change programs and be comfortable working within a fast-paced environment where your detailed understanding of the commissioning cycle will ensure that we effectively lead market-shaping activities within designated specialisms and undertake analysis to ensure that decisions are informed by and aligned with needs, resources, and outcomes, and the views of our children and young people. Right, well, yeah, okay. Yeah, what now?
Yeah.
Yeah, who?
I know. It sounds like one of those, when they have those TV commercials and they have that person who speaks really fast, and it's like,
oh, right at the end, yeah,
yeah,
the terms and conditions. The person, 7.5 APR. And you're like, what? I mean, I could read that slower, but then we'll be here for half an hour, right?
Yeah, I know. That's it. It's crazy, isn't it? Like you said, how simple, like, and that's a job that's in the UK. Do you think, like, at that job and that position, like you said, there are people out there who it might suit, or they might be good at that job, but even like looking at that and hearing that, and you saying it and reading it on the screen, it really does kind of throw you. And I think, like, you will have the ability to manage complex change programs and be comfortable working within a fast-paced environment. Like you said, if that's for a caring role, or a role where you're helping people.
I'm not hearing a lot of caring coming from that description. You know what I mean? And this is my issue with that particular job description, and I'm sure that's not the only one out there, where you're not, if you're a company, you're a business, you need, if your business especially is involved in caring, then for goodness sake, it should be in every facet of your business, including the job descriptions. Why it doesn't seem to be emanating any passion. It doesn't seem to be, it sounded to me, there was a lot of business speak, a lot of phraseology that would be better suited to the boardroom and stuff like this, strategies and things like that. There's nothing wrong with the word strategy, but I mean, I want to know that you're basically saying, listen, we need to help our young people. This has been a tough time for everybody. Do you think you've got the capacity and compassion to deal with this? Because then we want to hear from you. I certainly don't want to hear, which I think I read, hang on, let me just bring it up again, where it does sound like, hey, we want to be number one in this field. It's like, whoa, hang on a minute. I thought we were here to help others and not think of ourselves.
It sounds very robotic, though, doesn't it? It sounds very programming-ish.
Ensure that we effectively lead market-shaping activities within designated specialisms. Why can't people just say what they mean? we want to improve our services to better serve the people who need our services. Hey,
Yeah.
just speak it as it is.
Mm.
And my worry, which is what we were talking about before we went live, was that it could potentially, I say potentially, it probably will definitely put a lot of people off who would probably be ideal for that role.
Mm. I think
Caring
that's
people,
it.
which is what we need. Compassionate people, which is what we need more now than ever. In fact, the only sort of people that could potentially apply are people that speak gobbledygook and are very good with systems and analytics and everything else, which obviously we need. But we're talking about dealing with the vulnerable in society. We need to make sure that we have people with hearts as well as minds.
Do you think I agree with you? But do you think that's almost like a filtering process by having it worded that way? So people who kind of don't understand it or who look at that and go, oh, "I'm not going to bother with it." But then,
yeah,
do you?
I do, and I'm gonna be a bit glib here, and I know people probably get a bit upset, but it does sound a little bit discriminatory. It sounds like, well, if you don't understand this, then we don't. Obviously, then you're not going to apply.
Yeah.
And perhaps that's their goal, is to be, and I use the word elitist. We are only looking for this caliber of person. If you can understand this paragraph that was written with no grammar, no punctuation, and one sentence only, then you're the kind of guy or girl, or woman that we want to hear from. And that just that just doesn't sit right with me.
Yeah, no, I agree, and I think like some of these applications as well. I talked to my friend about it the other day. I filled in an application, and it was like, I mean, I understand some jobs are very long applications, but I think sometimes it doesn't have to be that way. If you could just break it down, and I think I spent like pretty much the whole day filling it in, and I didn't end up getting the job in the end. But I think there's almost like that in that sense, like these long applications. It's like you said, you kind of have to be a certain kind of person and have that self-discipline sometimes to really sit down, feed through that information, apply. It's very it can be it's a job in itself, applying for that.
What bothers me about it is, where are we going in a world where we are trying, or at least it sounds like we're trying to make things more complicated. We're trying to make things so process and strategy based, when surely after this year that we've had, we surely have come to realize that we don't need as much to rely on those types of things anymore as much. We need more heart to heart. We need more people who actually understand each other or understand human behavior. And I suppose that was, I was disappointed, shall we just say, when I read that. It was because I think I read the job title and I thought maybe this is something I might be interested in. But when I read the rest of the description, I just thought, oh no.
Yeah.
I can just imagine sitting down to the interview and then being asked about it. Why did you apply for this job first and foremost? And that bit's fine. But then when you read the rest, and I thought, well, how would I possibly answer? I've lost the post now. Where is it? Oh, wait, here we are. If they would probably ask me, well, so how would you effectively lead market shaping activities within designated specialisms? And I'll be like, I'm sorry, I don't really know what you're talking about. But what I can do is I can help with outcomes and resources for children and young people.
Yeah. Yeah,
if you direct me in what it is exactly you need in plain English, then I will strive to deliver that for you.
Yeah, no, definitely. I've definitely had telephone interviews like that, and they'll say words like that. Where have you got experience in X, Y, Z? And it's like these complex words, and you're like, whoa, what does that even mean? And then you sometimes you could be afraid to ask that because you don't want to come across as being.
I'm really conscious of elitism in language. I love language, and if anyone's ever seen any of my LinkedIn comments or posts, occasionally I do use language that people get angry about, just because I'm not using it to be elitist. I promise. I just love English. I love vocabulary.
Yeah.
And I enjoy using it, and I'm not using it to segregate myself from anybody or separate people. I'm doing that personally. I'm not a business, I'm not doing it from a business perspective. If I was doing a business advert or running a marketing campaign, you do that in as plain English as possible to reach as many ears or as many eyes as possible. You're selling something. You don't want to leave anybody out. And a job description is no different, or at least it shouldn't be different. I appreciate it probably is, but it shouldn't be. Especially when it's, and this is it, it's especially when it's meant to be a humanitarian job description. This job is the basis of this job is for young people and children, as it says right at the very end. So why are you making this sound elitist and difficult for people to understand exactly what's going on? Why can't you tell us in plain English, well, our kids need this, and we're looking for someone who can deliver this? There are ways of writing things. Communication is so important. You can make things sound as complicated as you like. I could tell you how to make a cup of tea, and I could make it as scientific and as literal as you like, where you just wouldn't really understand what on earth I was going on about. But if I say, hey, look, get a cup, put a tea bag in it, water or milk first, your choice, and then I don't want to start a war, and then add sugar to taste. That's simple. But if you start saying, well, get yourself a suitable receptacle, and and go on in that sort of guise, then it's going to turn people off, and people can say, oh, I didn't sign up for a chemistry lesson.
Has to be 180 degrees Fahrenheit.
Yes, yeah, exactly. Exactly. Steep for, Look, put it in there, wait till it's turned to a color that you like, and that's it. But we human beings just have this bad habit.
I think, as you said, kind of overcomplicate the process for whatever reason to try and sound probably like quote unquote like professional and things like that, which it's like that branding, isn't it? Like you are going to have like a sports brand and have a complex description because it's not really in your brand. If you're
case in point, have you ever, and I know you have, I'm just rhetorical, but when you're sitting watching TV and you've seen one of those, I better not mention the names, but those hair care products advertised, and they go, here comes the sciencey bit, and it's just word salad, and some graphics. What on earth are you trying? And they know that it appeals to people who don't understand what it is, but like the fact that they are hearing and seeing something way above their education because it's sciencey.
Yeah,
and it pays off that way, but it shouldn't. You shouldn't be blinded by science. You just shouldn't be. And if someone is talking about something that you really don't understand or is over your head, you need to say, whoa, just can you say that again, but this time in English, because I didn't understand.
Yeah, no, I think it's a really good point. What we're talking about, and it's not really something that I've never heard anyone else really talk about this or point it out, and I think it kind of something that should be pointed out, if that makes sense. Other than you pointing it out and saying, we need to look at this, because I think it is definitely a thing. And
we all know that simplicity is king. Whether you read I don't know Confucius or Albert Einstein, I think they've all said it about any philosopher, and I know that sometimes simplicity can be difficult to reach. But there are times when it really isn't. And this is one of those times. It's simply a job description asking for people to come forward who think that they would be right in this particular arena and have the relevant qualifications and experience.
Yeah.
Going overboard with business speak, business language, verbosity, hyperbole, no. That's not helping you widen the net for potential candidates. That's narrowing the net right there. And if you're going to narrow the net in a job for a job vacancy, then you may not get the very best.
Yeah. I mean, I've seen jobs similar to this, in that description. And sometimes I read it and I'm like, well, I'm not qualified enough to apply for that. Or I don't understand it, so I'm not going to apply for it. And I think it shouldn't be that way. It should, unless you're applying
It makes
for
you
a
doubt
job.
yourself. It makes you doubt your ability. You think, well, I read the job title, and that's something I've done before. But then when you read the actual meat of the job description, and you think, oh, I understand 5 words out of 10. And it just sounds horrifying.
Yeah.
It sounds like a daunting task. It really does. And then that brings me back to, well, what was the mission of the job description? What am I doing? Am I helping somebody? Yeah, you're helping somebody. Well, why are you making it sound so daunting to help somebody? Why does it sound like, oh, I can't get involved in helping another member of the community because there's a lot of long words and big words involved in that. And I'm a nobody. No one's a nobody. You are all capable of helping someone.
Yeah. No, I think that's really true. And I think it's like, it'd be different if it was say NASA or an astrophysicist job where there's, you kind of think, okay, well, I've got no experience and that's out of my field.
Yeah.
But when you think
I would expect a job advert for NASA to sound like that. Do you know what I mean? I would expect it to be way over my head because it is a technical job. It's a science job. I'm not science minded. I'm not technical minded at all. So I would expect that. But this is supposed to be about a caring job. So, let's reflect that in the language.
Yeah. No, I think that's really true as well. And like you said, especially now where, people are looking for work and, there are more applications and more applicants applying for certain jobs, probably basic jobs, like probably a cafe job or, a delivery job or, whatever it is.
And I've seen some of those, by the way. I've seen some of these jobs for not for high street cafes, but for cafes that were in, shall we say, supermarkets and stuff. You can go into certain supermarkets, big ones, that have their own cafes inside, and you can go in after you've done your shopping or before your shopping, go and have a cup of tea and a meal. And I've seen adverts, job descriptions for those, and even those sometimes come across a little strong. And you think, come on, don't need, just say what it is. Just let's be honest. We don't need business speak. We don't need science, chemistry speak in this. It is what it is. A lot of us have, the experience because we've cooked at home, we've served people. We can do this. You don't need to turn this into something that it is not.
Yeah.
I'm not saying that. I'm not trying to decry it from being something special. What I'm saying is, let's just be honest.
Yeah. I'm just trying to find
it will be a damn difficult job. I mean, serving people, you're potentially doing between 8 and 12 hours a day on your feet. Ain't nothing. I'm not decrying that it's hard work. All I'm saying is when you're doing a job description, don't make it sound like they're, like you said, building a wing of the space shuttle. Let's just be clear.
Well, I don't want to go too off topic, but it's like if you did a dating profile or something, you're going to have like something really complex, like what I'm looking for, and it's like, whoa, just it should comply kind of with what you're kind of advertising, isn't it? Like with these jobs.
Well, not all right. If you want to bring it back from the dating, even a LinkedIn profile.
Yes,
some people's job titles and whatever. I just think I read the words, I understand the words as individual words, but altogether, I don't really understand what that person's trying to tell me.
Yes, that's a good point.
And we have to be really careful that and I'm not trying to blame anyone here or shame anyone at all. I feel that I've done it, so I know I'm guilty. We fall into this trap of trying to belong and trying to copy others who maybe succeeded that way. And you think, well, they did this. They sounded really professional. It's like the sciencey bit on the hair advert. the hair shampoo advert or the skincare advert. It's the sciencey bit. And you think, well, maybe if I sound more educated, maybe if I sound more sciencey, people will take me seriously. People will really think that I am the professional that I want to be, and that I believe that I am. And the danger is you can get really tied up in doing that, because you are then making yourself, you're not being authentic to yourself. If you don't talk like that, if that's not how you talk, either verbally or in writing, then why do it?
Yeah, that's it. And I think that's kind of like that kind of identity, isn't it? And like you said, that kind of, how can I put it into words? Kind of like following the crowd, or people trying to think, oh, do I need to fit into to dress this way or be this way, kind of thing. And I see that on LinkedIn a lot, and I used to feel like, oh, do I need to wear a shirt in my profile picture? Does it need to look a certain way? All these kind of things. And I've just seen that someone's LinkedIn profile picture here now where they're on a surfboard surfing a wave.
Yeah.
So
you will be judged no matter what you do. You know, you're damned if you do, you're damned if you don't. So just go with what you think. No, not even you think. Go with what you feel. You feel confident with.
And I think as long as you're being yourself, aren't you, and you're being genuine, people are going to see that more. Yeah,
absolutely.
Do you think, like, just going, because like with LinkedIn, like I mean, like, sometimes, like I said, with jargon and people using certain words, I mean, each to their own, but sometimes, like you said, you don't understand what people are doing, or it's just text. I mean, I saw some person's bio, and it was like 10 paragraphs. I mean, and exactly, like, if you wasn't a recruiter, an employer, it's that probably that time aspect to it, isn't it? If you're looking to hire someone, it's like a CV, isn't it? I remember I had a really long CV at one stage, and now I've broken it down. It's like that employer hasn't got the time to sift through all that information out there. I don't know. That's what someone told me.
Yeah.
What do you think?
There is a truth to that. CVs are, we could do a whole show on CVs. Because you're right, time is of the essence, especially with business, more than any other sort of sector. And you do have to tailor a CV. I mean, I've got about 5 on my hard drive, and they're all slightly different in different ways. One's long, one's short, one's like bullet point shopping list, another one's got more meat on the bone, and the words are different as well, depending on what sector of job I'm going for.
Yeah.
So time is a thing. We can't escape that. People are always looking to make more time, to have more time, and not to waste so much time. So that is very important. How we write things. As I said, communication is just so important. It's the difference between understanding and not understanding. And we need to try and understand each other as human beings more than ever if we're gonna progress.
Yeah.
The whole way that we, look at the planet, look at what's happening apart from COVID, look at just for a minute, about the negative things as well that are going on, about deforestation, escalation in arms and weapons. And that's why we need people to get around a table and talk. We need to understand, why are we doing this? To what purpose are we doing this? Is there another way we can get around this? If we don't talk, if we don't communicate, if we don't, most importantly, if we don't understand not only each other, but where we're coming from, and whether we're coming from a good place or a bad place. Are we talking to communicate to take advantage, or are we really looking for communication for peace? We need to get our messages clear. And the best way is usually the simplest. And that's why when you hear language like this in this job advert, you start thinking, wait a minute, this is, and this is really bottom of the ladder stuff. This isn't, as we said, this isn't NASA here. So why are you doing this? Why are you making it so hard to understand what it is that you need? But
yeah. I like. Do you think has it always been this way? Like, and from like your life experience in job applications, is this just more so recently?
I think there's been an escalation certainly of the last 20 plus years. The 80s really started this, as far from my own memory, from my own experience. The 80s started to see this sort of ultra business culture. And when I mean business culture, I mean they decided to try and make themselves their own culture with their own language. That's where, the yuppie and the language of the yuppie first got introduced. And you get all these, we all laugh about them now, but the business phrases, let's push the envelope, let's run it up a flagpole and see who selects, all that kind of stuff. That was created to keep them different from everybody else. And that's what we do as human beings. We like still to differentiate, to segregate, to alienate, to become tribal in a way. And I'm in two minds about that. There are some times where that is right to do that, and there are many times when it is wrong to do that.
Yeah, there's definitely something tribal there, isn't there? In people, of how they kind of operate that way, if that makes sense, Lisa.
Yeah.
To have people who are similar to themselves, I think there's nothing wrong with that. But I think like you can get people who are completely different from a different place and still be as good, if not better. But I think it's that kind of pack kind of mentality, intimidation, and all of these kind of things.
Absolutely, Adam. I totally agree with that. That's why I said I'm in two minds about it. There are many reasons why, when you are different, there's nothing wrong with that. And you have your own little culture. And I said little, when you have your own culture and your own behaviors, it's fine. But when you use that on purpose with a mission to say, I'm going to make sure that I'm different from you, and I'm going to make sure you don't understand as much as possible what I'm doing and what my tribe are doing, that's where we need to take issue with it. When it's almost forced. If it's a naturally occurring thing, that's fine. But when you're doing it specifically to keep people segregated from whatever it is that you're doing, that's what worries me. And for example, always going back to this advert, it sounds like you're being separated before you've even applied.
Yeah.
And I'm talking about, I don't mean, that's what job descriptions do. Obviously, if it's not the right job for you, yeah, that's fine. But what happens if it potentially is the right job for you because of what it's about? You look at the real nub of what the job's about. If it's helping young people, people, vulnerable people, and you think, this is what I've done all my life. But hang on, I'm reading the job description. I don't really understand what on earth this is about.
And then that's like a missed opportunity, isn't it, as well? Because that job might, be that kind of dream job with that person.
My point. That's my point. That's my point. We shouldn't be, and I'm only going to say this regarding jobs like these, which are supposed to be humanitarian. We shouldn't be trying to limit our options when we're in the business of helping people. Business of something else, I don't know, purely making money, whatever, building spaceships, whatever, that's fine. I get that. But when it's humanitarian, when it's something potentially a lot of us can do, then surely it should be made a little bit more clear as to what the job is actually about, what our missions and goals are regarding that job, so that we could all potentially apply.
Yeah, no, exactly. And I think like if you as the you kind of have to see it, don't you? Like if you as the person putting that job out there, how do you want that to come across? Because in my mind, you want to put like the benefits of the job and have it clear and what you're going to be doing ultimately. It's like if you buy a piece of equipment, you want to know how it's going to work and what you're going to be doing.
Absolutely. I want to know in a very short space of time what it is that I'm purchasing.
Mm.
I don't want to have to then get a dictionary and a thesaurus out to figure out what it is that it's supposed to be doing for me.
Mm.
And job descriptions are no different.
Mm. Yeah, no, I think, as you said, it's something, especially now where people are looking for work, you don't want to, as an employer, you don't want to make it hard for people who are looking for work to then apply for your, that job. And
yeah. Well, I'm not being, I don't want to be, I always hate to be so overly negative if people say, oh, you're only seeing it from one perspective. And I hate to do that. So I'm going to bring the balance and the positivity to it, in the sense that whoever wrote that perhaps was intentionally trying to cut down the number of applicants, because there's such a large amount of people out there who would potentially apply. I mean, we've seen in the newspapers and on the news that there'll be a job going in a pub or a cafe, and 10,000 people apply.
Yeah, there was one.
And so I appreciate, I can see the perspective of somebody writing a complicated or a complex job description in order to sort of stop that happening. They didn't want a tsunami of emails saying, yeah, pick me. But I still don't like it.
Yeah.
Doesn't mean to say I have to like it. I understand it. I appreciate it. I sympathize with it, but I don't like it. But
it's not
just me.
I think that's it. I mean, I definitely see your point, and I agree, and I don't think it's fair, because I've recently been in position where you're applying for jobs, you're looking for stuff, and it's difficult, and you just kind of want to find something. And if you find something that you think, oh, this suits me, but you don't quite understand it, you're left with that confusion almost. And then like I said before, it's easy to doubt yourself and then think, well, that might be just another job on the list that you think, oh, it isn't for me, and when you're trying to sift through all those filters, it's a lot of work.
I think another irritant, and I'm sure a lot of people have experienced this, is you've gone for a job and perhaps the job description was a little like this. I don't think it was potentially that extreme. I mean, that's an extreme job description. You've gone for a job or you've applied for a job, and the job description is a little detailed, and you worry that perhaps you're not up for it. And the next thing you know, you've got the job. And then after that, you start work, maybe 3-6 months down the line, you're comfortable in the job, and you think about the job description, you think, it's nothing like that. It made it sound so hard. I was so worried, and now I'm doing this job. I could teach anyone to do this.
Yeah.
And I wonder if that's part of the reasoning to do that, because we're marginally embarrassed about actually how easy some of our work is. But we have to make it sound more complicated, because otherwise we don't feel that it's that important.
Yeah.
And it's all mentality, it's all psychological. Why do you need for it to sound complicated, so that, when you tell your friends or your family what it is you do, you think, that sounds complicated. I could teach most people half the jobs I've ever done in my life.
Yeah.
It's just, if you've got the right mentality, you can do it.
Yeah.
If you've got the right aptitude, you can do it.
Yeah, it's definitely almost like that trick of the mind almost, isn't it? I think it's like when, as well, like when you do, say, coursework or writing an essay.
Yeah.
Or Harvard referencing. I remember when I went to university, about the word Harvard referencing would just scare me, and I'd be like, oh, I don't want to go near that. And then at first it's pretty complex, but then you think, after a while, oh, well, I kind of get it now.
Yeah.
But like you said, at the start of things, it's just so complex, and it's like you feel all this dread, and then when you're doing the essay or you're doing the work, after a while you just kind of get into it. But there's like definitely something there that does feel quite daunting. I mean, I get it with applying for job applications sometimes, because like you said, it just looks and comes across so complex before you even kind of put your toe into it.
Yeah. But every time I see one of those long, complex sounding job descriptions, I always immediately think of the analogy with a cup of tea.
Mm.
And I just think, look at all of that. And I could just picture myself in the job, and I would be thinking, I bet if I actually got the job, it'd be a piece of cake.
Yeah.
By comparison to what it seems to be about.
Yeah, because you fill in all those details and you pull in all this information, and it's like, oh gosh, this is pretty important.
If I was to write down, how to make a cup of tea using, the scientific method and ridiculously long words, I'll write about 10 paragraphs.
Yeah.
But then if I show you, it takes about 60 seconds. You'd be like, I could do that with my eyes closed almost. So what was the big deal? And that's now what I always think of when I see anything that on first glance appears to be, this sounds really complex. And then I think, well, hang on a minute. Is it the scientific cup of tea? Is it actually a lot easier in practice than it is in putting it into words?
Yeah. Yeah, that's it. It's almost like, if you used to break down on paper how a car drives, how to drive a car. And like you think,
I had this conversation with another interviewer recently on a podcast. Exactly that. I said I couldn't tell you how the internal combustion engine works, and I couldn't tell you for two reasons. One, I just don't know, and secondly, I'm just not interested.
Yeah.
But I love cars. To be accurate, I love the shell. I love the different shapes of cars. And I love driving.
Yeah.
But weirdly, I'm not interested in how they work.
Mm.
I'll leave that up to, people who like science. That's great. Good for you. You like that. But I don't need to know that in order to drive the car. I just need to be shown, right, you press this pedal here because, this deals with the gears, but you don't need to know about that because that's just more science.
Yeah, that's it.
People do that. And before people start saying, no, that's not true. Actually, yes, it is true. I've lived in countries all over the world and more often than not, very, very impoverished countries where you see very sort of young adults, if not children, sometimes driving vehicles, and they don't have a clue, but they know how to drive.
Mm.
They don't know how the internal combustion engine works. They don't know how gears work.
Yeah.
But they get the feeling for it.
Yeah.
And that's a bit like how I am. In fact, that's very much how I am. I go on feeling.
I think.
Yeah. It's how I played music. I was in a band. I wrote songs. This is going back 20 years. I'm an old man now. But and people always, I remember jamming with different bands over the years, and people would be like, right, this one's in the key of G. And I'd be like, I don't know what you just said. You'd be like, hang on, mate, how do you play guitar then? I said, I play it by ear. You play the note, I'll just know where that is on the fretboard. And they just looked at me and they said, well, this guy's a bit of a weirdo, and we'll go with it. And they did. I played along with them, and they didn't understand how I knew where the correct notes would be just from listening to it. The same way that I didn't understand how notes on a line mean anything.
It's so interesting, isn't it?
We're all different. How we communicate, how we interpret, how we understand. We're all different.
I think that's why, I'm interested in people as well. And I think, it's everyone's different. Everyone's got their own strengths, haven't they? And, I think if someone's got a passion for something, then you do that, or you got an interest in it, isn't it? And it's like when you see these very scientific programs, and the people who they just naturally kind of the way their mind works, it just kind of works in that way. And I've had conversations with people sometimes, and part of it goes in and part of it goes over my head, but they're on a different, wavelength. And then probably same to us, like we're having this conversation, we talk about certain things which other people, then probably not, on that same vibe. And I think that's something that I've learned a lot, and you probably have as well, like spending time with certain people, being on that kind of same vibe as certain people, if that makes sense. And
totally.
And talking to them about certain things.
Completely. Yeah. But it's all about communication.
Yeah.
And if you can communicate effectively, then you've won half the battle. And that's really what it's all about.
And that could be the difference, perhaps, of you probably, I don't know, having like a relationship or getting a job on that. Do you think?
Absolutely. I was just going to stop you at the word relationship. I mean, this is why people go through, fights with their significant others, because sometimes you haven't communicated correctly.
Mm.
All right. Sometimes it's because you haven't done what she asked you to do, which I'm guilty of.
Making a cup of tea.
Other times it's because we have misinterpreted one another. You said this. Yeah, I know I said this, and that means this. And I said, oh, well, I thought you meant that. Communication. If there is any doubt, then you need to clarify. It does. It makes or breaks relationships. I mean, of all kinds, not just personal, business, interpersonal. It really is the key. It's the magic key. Understand what the other person is saying to you, or try, if it's you doing the talking or the telling, try and ensure that other person understands you. And if they haven't, then tell it a different way. Tell it a different way, a thousand ways, until you're quite sure that person is understood.
Yeah, that's it. And I think
that leads on to other problems. I mean, which we've all been through, where that person gets irritated because they're like, oh, how come you don't understand? I've been like that. And you think, oh, I'm wasting my time here. And this person doesn't get it. This person doesn't understand. How can you not understand? We have to just take a deep breath and think, we're all on different levels. We all communicate differently. We understand differently. We have different perspectives. We can't all be the same as us. You have to stop looking and believing that everyone is basically like us, wearing different clothes. They're not. Completely different planets. They're practically aliens. And if you look at people like that in a nice way, then you're going to think twice about how you communicate. I always remember my English teacher, 30 years ago, telling me that, which I've never ever forgotten, which is, when you're communicating, without being patronizing, imagine you're telling a 10-year-old. Are you going to talk, back to this job description, in highfalutin scientific terminology? You're going to break it down to really what it is that you want.
Yeah. No, definitely. I think like it's something that is definitely key in the world today, in business and in like I said, all life, communication. Especially doing, even doing this, is communication. Like, I'm not going to paraphrase or say anything in a complex way back to what you just said, if that makes sense. And
well, we're lucky because we've already developed over months that we've known each other. Yeah, where our level is. So we're lucky in that regard, and I think that's a really cool thing to happen with anybody who's meeting somebody for the first time. Is what vibration, what wavelength are they on, and either are you already on that wavelength, or at least can you get yourself onto that wavelength? And once you're locked on, I know your nuances. I know how you are, so I tune into that, and how I am, so you tune into that. And that's that is unspoken communication, and we've got
no, I agree, and I think it's definitely quite what's the word, quite rare sometimes, isn't it? Like sometimes people don't kind of have that, and it's I think especially like I think this is something I'm experiencing. I don't know if I've top it too much, but like with dating and that kind of thing during like this pandemic, it's like on these apps, particularly, you don't really know that person, and you're trying to establish that communication, and you're trying to gauge, who they are, and it can be difficult. I mean, especially now because COVID. Are you going to meet that person? And there's, like I said, there's communication. There's almost like this barrier. I feel, and I've got to try and gauge, who that person is. That, do you know what I mean? That kind of thing.
Yeah. Well, I think that the problem, if we're going to go a little bit off topic with relationships, but still talk about communication, is the fact that sometimes we have to realize and be accepting of the fact that some communication takes a long time to be understood. Especially in the dating world, you're going to take that communication from somebody else, whatever it is that they're communicating to you, when you haven't met them. And you're going to analyze it, and then you're going to analyze it some more, and then you're going to respond to it, and you're going to respond to it in a way that you think, depending on what they said to you, that they will understand you. As you read their language and you think, oh, okay, all right, so now I need to reply in a sort of similar manner. It's like when, if you were ever taught to write letters at school or at college or what have you, or even in business, and you look at how they start the letter and how they end the letter, and then you reply accordingly. You take your cue from the other person so that you are not, or you hope that you are not misunderstood. Because the worst thing is that somebody writes you a very formal letter and you reply with a very informal letter, and then they're like, who is this clown? You know, I'm writing. That's what we do in life. We take our cues from the person that we are corresponding with or communicating with. And it's tentative as to who goes first, especially in relationships when you're seeking one online. But this is going back to the job description. It's a funny thing. I wonder if, I was thinking of just replying just for a laugh, and having my response in the same sort of language.
See if.
I think they'd get it. I think they'd be like, "Oh, yeah, very funny."
I think it will be removed after this podcast. No, I'm joking.
Don't tempt me. There might be another podcast saying, "Look, this is what happened."
Yeah, I am a Martian coming from this planet. I am applying for this job accordingly. It's crazy.
Yeah, I have detailed understanding of the commissioning cycle, and I can ensure that I can effectively lead market-shaping activities with designated specialisms.
It sounds like it's that guy. You ever seen The Walking Dead?
Yeah.
The guy with the mullet.
Yes, exactly. Now here's a perfect example.
What's his name again?
I'm glad you brought him up, and I've forgotten his name. I'll get it later. But
I'll find him.
Where he talks in very pedantic and literal ways. I kind of like that, and you probably hear that a lot in the way I speak as well. But then I fashioned myself to be like that so that I'm not misunderstood. And another one, sorry.
They're talking to The Walking Dead.
Yeah, that's true. My ringtone. I love The Walking Dead.
It's good.
But yeah,
because he was Eugene. He would say things. Let me try and find some of his quotes.
But there's no way you could misunderstand him.
Yeah,
and that's what I loved about the way he spoke. And I've taken that on board over the years. It wasn't The Walking Dead that changed the way I write and I speak. It was being misunderstood frequently or being misinterpreted that really bothered me. There's nothing more frustrating, even though people probably don't realize that this is partly that this is part and parcel of why they get angry in life, is that people are not listening, A, and B, that they're not understanding you. And it's very frustrating.
Yeah,
that's why I changed the way I talk to people and the way that I write to people, because I'm so afraid of being misunderstood. And that's why I really fell into love with language. And I was like, wow, so I can say this and not be misunderstood, because there is no other there's no other definition for this word. This word means this word, and there's no way you could think I was saying anything else.
That's it. There's definitely a lot in like language and communication, isn't it? Like it's very deep, and it's very. I think it's something that we've all got our own accent, language, things like that.
Yeah.
And the way I communicate, like I'm from Nottingham, so I pronounce things differently.
Yeah.
To like Nottingham sometimes.
Yeah.
I try not to do that too much.
Nottingham,
but
love it.
but like there are certain words I'll say sometimes, and that's some people might not understand that. So yeah. I think
these are cultural things, and these are things that we should treasure.
Yeah.
I think it's lovely to have an identity.
Yeah.
And I will never take anything away from cultural identity. I think it's a wonderful thing to have and to nurture. But the meaning has to be there. If you're saying something, then it has to be accurate in that. Yeah, that is exactly what I meant. Rather than, I worked for the police, and I think that was probably where my language skills really, where I honed my language skills. Because before I didn't really care, but when I started dealing with people at one end of the justice system, and then dealing with the lawyers and the judges at the other end of the judicial or the justice system. And that's where I really discovered the importance of language and the the essence of communication. And that's when I really changed how I spoke and how I wrote, because I realized the power of being understood versus being misunderstood. And someone would tell you something, and then I'd just say, look, I just need to make sure I've understood you correctly. And then I would tell them what I believed they'd told me. And when someone said, no, that isn't what I meant at all. And that's when I thought, wow, that was revelatory to me.
Yeah, because you could have somebody in a certain situation who is, saying something a certain way, and then you've got to then take that, break it down, and then present that to a judge, or X, Y, Z.
Yeah, which is what I did. I actually did. I was a go-between between, shall we say, the person who'd been arrested and the CPS. So I'd have to speak to the Crown Prosecution Service and interpret what had happened in such a way that the Crown Prosecution Service would then sort of say either that they were interested in taking the case or not, depending on how I communicated it to them.
Yeah. Yeah, no, that's it.
And I learned so much by doing that job. So much about how important it was to communicate effectively using accurate language.
Yeah, it's definitely important, isn't it? And definitely important to think about how you communicate and how you break things down, especially in a world where lots happening. Trying to be mindful about that as well, isn't it? How you communicate yourself. That makes sense as well. Like your image and how you kind of.
Oh, totally. I mean, that also has a huge part to play, either on Zoom or in person. When it's just in writing, that's just, you've only got your words to portray everything. I often think that it's actually harder to explain yourself just purely in writing than it is in person, or, for example, over a video call. Because we've got a lot more communication going on. We've got the visual, the aural. And this helps a lot. But when you don't have that, when all you've got is your words, and I don't know if I'm sure you've seen it, but for example, LinkedIn, and it happens on every platform, Facebook, Instagram, which anyone you use, Twitter especially, you can say something innocently and it can be twisted, misinterpreted, misread, and it can just trigger people. And you think, all that from just a couple of sentences.
Yeah.
And this is why, if you haven't already, you need to understand how important communication is. Words
Mm.
are just so important.
Mm.
They are effectively like casting a spell, which is why we use the word spelling when we're talking about how do I spell a word?
Mm.
Because words are like an incantation. They make you, I can change how you feel. I can make how you change. I can make
Yeah,
you,
yeah,
I can change how you feel about me by
yeah,
saying
yeah,
something that is horrible, derogatory, wrong, rude, whatever, or I
yeah,
can change to make you feel great.
yeah.
And that is the power of words. And I just feel that these days we're very, very nonchalant about it. We're just like, oh, yeah, he'll understand what I'm talking about. Well, maybe he won't. And maybe he'll take umbrage to what you just said. Maybe he'll just say, well, what were you saying about me?
Mm. Mm.
And then before you know it, you've arrived at a conflict situation.
Mm. Yeah, there's so much to it, isn't there? It's like, that listening to it as well. Like, I remember talking about communication, when I worked in restaurants, I have to listen to the customer to what they want, make sure that's clear, go over it, put that into a screen, tell the chefs or whoever what's going on, and all these kind of like different processes going on all at once. It's not the easiest thing in the world, but I think the more you do it, the more you home into it, you kind of get better at it, don't you?
Yeah.
It's definitely important, like you said, because it's something that I think some people lack, some people don't think about, and they wonder why things aren't working out. And it's like, well, if you're not communicating or listening, then then what?
That's why these are some of the most important skills in life, be it your business life or your personal life.
Mm.
If you cannot listen effectively and question effectively, then you cannot communicate effectively.
Yeah. Well, it's like if I wasn't listening to you and that you're talking to me, and I know I talk about something else, or don't kind of process what you've said and reply in a certain way, people listening are going to think, what the hell are they talking about? You're going to be like, what's he talking about? Which, so it's important, isn't it? I mean, it's something that people just I don't think about sometimes. They just do it and do it and do it, and it's like, well, hold on a sec, is it effective and things like that.
I wonder, with people with their businesses, even if they're successful businesses, I wonder if they could be even more successful if they had better channels of communication.
Yeah, there was I saw Gary Vee did a video, and he was saying he had a guy, and this guy had a business. I don't know if you've seen it. And this guy was saying, I go to work, and this is kind of communication. And he was saying, the people aren't as happy as me and things like this. And he was like, well, why not take out X amount of time in your day, sit down with them, talk to them for 20 minutes, communicate with them.
Yeah.
Because, there might have things going off at home. He said, spend that amount of time, if I take up a lunchtime, talk to Sally or whoever, and then they go about their day and then they're fine. And then the business is better because you kind of know how people are because you communicate with them.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, that would be perfect if that were possible in every business.
Yeah.
And it's not to say it isn't. The problem you would have with, say, sort of small to medium businesses in doing something like that is for them, every second is money. And if they have to spend 60 minutes just talking to somebody, which is not going to earn them any money because it's just one of their employees, then they feel that they're making a loss already. And this is, we could go on to, we could have another interview about this one alone, about business, what works for business and what doesn't, what should work for business, and why people won't change their culture in business.
How do you think that can change? Like, do you think that will change?
I personally, I think that there will be a schism. I think that there will be a sharp divide between companies that care and companies that continue to operate like Victorian workhouses, where they just don't care about you. Here's the job, do the job, earn your money and go home. And I don't care about you. But if you want to earn a wage, just turn up tomorrow. If you don't like it, there's the door. And then there will be companies who will do exactly what Gary Vee has just said, where, if you care about your company growing, I mean, really growing from the inside out rather than the outside in, then you're going to be at one with your employees as though they were family. I mean, if you can have a friendship almost, I mean, I'm not talking about you have to have a deep, really personal friendship with your colleagues and employees, but if you can be at a level where you understand them better because you have a small insight. No one's asking for your full profile about your personal life and what you had for lunch on Tuesday, but at least a better insight into them personally, then you can, in a nice way, exploit the good things about them. You say, you know what, I never knew this about you. You told me about, you've got this skill. You're really good at talking to, I don't know, to a certain group in society. And I never knew that about you. Look, we've got this opening in this other department. I think you'd be great for that. There's more money involved in it, and I think you'd be brilliant. You start to know your own employees. You start to know how they would operate better. And then you act, that's their whole job as a leader or a manager, is you act accordingly.
And people probably respect you as well because you're willing to give people your time. I think that's what I respect in bosses or managers I've had, when they're willing to have that time to talk to you about things. So you think,
it's to get to know. I think you owe it. I think as a manager or a CEO or a HR recruiter, whatever you want to be, I think you owe it. If you're going to utilize another human being's skills, their skills are not solely on that CV or covering letter. And if you think they are, and that's how you judge another human being, you're missing the point. You are sadly missing the point. Everything you're seeing on a CV is a really, and I do mean this, it's really a basic profile. Very basic, ultra basic. You might as well say, I'm 5'8", I've got brown hair and green eyes. That doesn't tell me who you are. I don't care about necessarily who you worked for. That doesn't tell me who you are. I worked on this project and that project. Okay, doesn't tell me who you are. You even writing about yourself doesn't tell me who you are, because you're writing about yourself from your own perspective, thinking what I want to hear. The only way I'm going to know who you are is by properly speaking to you, human to human, not title to title. Hi, I'm your boss. You're my employee. Tell me who you are. That ain't going to work. You're still going to get the same prepared sort of response. We need to really find out who we are and who we're dealing with. And if you're in a business and you're in a business that you want to succeed, you want to have people who potentially think like you. Because we going back to something we brought up earlier on this interview, tribalism. We're all looking for tribe. We're all looking for family. We're all looking for like-minded individuals to carry forward our vision, our collective vision. We hope to attract people who see things our way. That's just what we do. So if you really want to get to know people and make sure that they are of the same tribe, they have the same perception, that they understand the mission, then you have to communicate well with those people. And they have to understand you. Because if you're the boss or you're the HR or you're the manager, you've got to communicate that. Look, guys, this is our company and this is what we do and this is what we hope to do. Are you guys on board? I don't know. I don't know you very well. But let's have a chat about this. How do you feel about it? Where are you coming from? What's your perspective? But we don't seem, or certainly in my experience, I haven't seen too much of it. I'm sure it does go on. I'm hopeful and positive, and I'm sure that there are a lot of new companies and new startups that are like that, which I'm really grateful for. We just need much more of it.
Yeah, no, I definitely agree. And I had a podcast with a guy called Jason Klug, and he's in Utah. And I'm trying to bring that up. I'll tell you about his company, but he was basically saying that his employees, he does regular Zoom calls with his new employees. He touches base with them, and he sees how they're doing, and he kind of just does what you just mentioned, And I'm like, that's pretty rare. It's rare to hear about nowadays. And he said, he cares about his people who work for him,
Yeah.
and he gets to know them, and he has that kind of approach. And I think that's, I like to think that that's the kind of way that businesses try and follow, rather than not knowing who people who the names of the people that work for them and getting to know them.
It's essential, especially, and we're in a strange time right now, especially if your job is sort of human focused. And by that, I mean, it's not, I'm not building a car, I'm not building a plane. I'm not manufacturing something specifically. If I'm dealing people to people, I need a human to purchase my product.
Yeah.
Then I need people who are good at dealing with other people. And I don't just mean hiring salespeople. I mean just hiring people who are really just good at just talking to people. Maybe you never did it before in your life as a career, as a job. I never sold to anyone in my life. Yeah, but you're naturally good at talking to people, and that's what I want. That's the way we should be, I hope, starting. I know we're just starting to look at things. Because my concern is, and there's a lot of it on LinkedIn, I've commented on a few posts today about automation in the future. And we're going to see a lot more of it, whether we like it or not. My concern is that, the humanity is going to be slowly eroded by it at a time when, after what we've just been through for the last almost 12 months, we need it now more than ever. So I'm hoping businesses will take the initiative and lead the way and say, we're going to do something different. We're not going to behave the way we used to, which was basically we wanted people to be like robots, a bit like that job description. We want you to be free-flowing and free-thinking. Because our particular job, it's not manufacturing, we are dealing with other human beings. We need you to understand who our client base is and what our clients want. And for all intents and purposes, you yourself applying for that job could have been a client or a customer of that product. So you know what we want. And you have an idea about what it is that we want and how we want to improve on what we already do. And you don't necessarily have to bring a degree or a certification to prove that. If we can see it, as you said, if you can have somebody sit down and actually just talk to you, just like person to person, don't think of me as your boss or your manager, all right, I have that responsibility, but at the end of the day, hey, I'm just me. I've got a family, I've got kids, I've got hopes and fears, just like you. Let's talk. Let's see if if you're the right fit. You can have all the qualifications. I replied to one particular guy today on LinkedIn about he was really angry that he didn't get a job that he felt he was perfect for. And I said to him, have you given thought to the fact that maybe characteristically, personally, you weren't the right fit for the company, or not the whole company, but maybe the group that you were going to work for, the sector. And he hadn't considered that at all. He said, yeah, but I had everything they asked for on paper. And I said, yeah, but that's not enough sometimes. If you're not going to be part, if they feel that you're not going to understand them or you're not going to fit in well with them, then they've done the right thing in not hiring you.
Yeah, I definitely agree. And I think sometimes if it's not meant to be, it's not meant to be. And I try not to take it too personally,
Well, yeah, because you can't, because I've been there. I'm talking like you. I'm talking from a place of experience. I've been there. I've wondered I was perfect for that job. I tick boxed everything that they asked. Why on earth did I not get that job? And it can transpire that they've interviewed you, they've seen you, how you behave, and they don't think that you will fit in very well. And you know what? Not only have they done themselves a favor, they have done you a favor. Imagine you get the job, and I've been here before, by the way, where I got the perfect job. I had the perfect job for a year. Everything about it was perfect. Everything, the location, my office, my colleagues, everything. And, 6 months into it, I wasn't fitting in to, they had their own little clique. I began to feel left out. And I made the decision to quit because I didn't want to feel depressed about this perfect job.
Yeah.
I understood that I didn't fit in. I wish I'd found out sooner, but it taught me a lot. I didn't get into the clique that was nothing to do with the actual work itself. But nevertheless, it's there. It's very, very strong in work. Don't forget, you're spending minimum of 8 hours in a job with somebody, with people.
Yeah.
And if you're not going to get along, if there's going to be some element where you are a little bit different or they're a bit different from you, you don't want to be doing that for 8 hours, 11 hours a day. Thinking, I don't really belong here. They're not talking to me, or I don't get the jokes and stuff like that. So we need to look at it positively and look at it from a different perspective and say, well, good. I'm glad I didn't get that job because perhaps I just wasn't a right fit. They saw me in the interview and they didn't think I was a right fit, which means I probably wouldn't have got on with them further on down the road. And I've just saved myself a lot of time and a lot of hurt.
Yeah, no, that's it. There's definitely, like I said, something positive we can take from those situations, isn't there? And it's that energy as well. You're not going to feel drained, and and you feel that relief if you come out of that situation. And I think you've got to be very mindful, haven't you? You've got to do what's right for you. But even though it doesn't work out, it's still experience, isn't it? And by just going through that and trying it out.
Well, everything I just talked about is another type of communication. You can tick all the boxes you like. You can have the right qualifications, the right certifications, everything else. You can look great on paper, but we communicate so much of ourselves personally when we're being interviewed, physically. And as we've already touched on that about 10 minutes ago, there is another level of communication going on, and you're being judged on that. And so don't feel disheartened if at that level you've got through the paper sift process and then you're at interview process and you don't pass it. Don't beat yourself up about that. Because maybe, I'm very positive about this, that it's more than maybe. You've saved a lot of time by not being hired. If they saw something in you that they didn't like, that's their issue. It's not you. It's nothing wrong with you. You do not have to change to fit in with them. I know people say, yeah, but I need a job. I need to put bread on the table. So do I. But trust me, there are limits. There are boundaries to that. I had a job very recently. I think you may know about it, where I worked for a company and I had to be 11 hours with one person. And I needed the money. And every day was sheer hell with this one person. And I had to make a decision. Do I just stay at this job where I'm basically mentally abused by this person and just suck it up and take the money? Or do I just save my mental health and leave? And I chose the latter. I walked away. And I was so relieved when I did that. We have to understand that if we don't feel welcome, we don't feel that we fit in with that tribe, that tribalism is another part away from the job. The job is the job. That's the robotic stuff. We need you to do X, Y, and Z. Yeah, I'll come in and I'll operate this machine. I'll press this button and I do this and whatever. I get on the phone and I speak to this customer. That's one part of your job. The other part is the communicating with the people you work with. And you have to try and make sure that you are the person you are. You want to be real. You want to be authentic. But don't expect to fit in all the time. No one is going to like you all the time.
Yeah, no, that's it. I think, like you said, you have to kind of reach a point and have like that kind of self-respect for yourself and have a limit where you draw the line in the sand somewhere to where you reach a point and you're like, okay, I'm going to look after me now. Because it's like, if your mental health isn't right and you're not happy, then that's not going to do you any good. And I think, I think it's good that you kind of acted on that and you realize that, because I think, like you said, there are times where you might need the money and it's, you might be desperate and you do things. I remember when I did a labouring job, I had no money and I found a labouring job working. I've never done labouring, and I just winged it and did this whole. Do you know what I mean? You do it for a week, but I couldn't do it for months. I couldn't. Do you know what I mean? You have to kind of draw the line in the sand somewhere, don't you?
Yeah.
Because the thing is, as well, you might go home and you take that out on your family or your friends because you're not happy. So it has a ripple effect.
Exactly. Look after yourself. Number one.
Mm.
But yeah, communication is it's more than just words. It goes deeper than that. But we have to make sure that we are communicating accurately all the time. And if someone else doesn't understand who you are, we have to try and make it as clear as possible to them what our intentions are, who we are, why we are the way we are.
Yeah, no, I completely agree.
I mean, this is why on LinkedIn, you see a lot of people saying, what is it, right below, tell us what it is that you actually do in 5 words or less. Because people are continually reading each other's profiles and saying, I don't really understand a word of what it is that you do. What is it that you do? And this is what I'm afraid of, that we're going back to this sort of 80s business speak culture instead of just keeping it real. Well, this is what I do. I help people. There's nothing more to it. Why do you want to make a science out of it? Oh, well, I'm in charge of this particular process, which is a strategy that's laid upon analysis. No, I don't want to hear that. What is it you do? What do you do that makes the world a better place? Well, I help people, or, I make sure the company runs efficiently. Great, that you've told me everything I need.
That's it. I think that's definitely key, as a brand as well, isn't it? In business, offering, if you want to offer your services, you don't overcomplicate it, because it's you might not get a client or whatever.
Absolutely.
I was just thinking, like, have you read any books this year, or any books that stand out to you? Or
I've been really, really bad about reading this year, which is unusual for me because I normally just eat books. I love books, but this year I've been all about, Netflix. I'm going to be honest. I've been all about the Netflix. Really, really bad.
Any documentaries on Netflix?
Yeah. Again, really bad. I'm human. I am so bad. I watched half of the one you told me to watch about Google. The social
dilemma.
Yeah, I need to finish watching that.
What do you think to it so far?
I love it. I mean, it basically answers all of my, or rather, it appeals to all of my cynicism about, and I am very cynical. Maybe it's my age. I'm almost 50, and I'm not really a modernist. I don't trust a lot of things that, if I don't understand them, I'm a bit like a caveman. If I don't understand how fire works, then I don't trust it. No, I'm not that bad. I just feel that a lot of bad, as well as good, can come from things, but I prefer things to be obviously more beneficial than negative. And I don't see that with technology. I really, really don't. Even though people try really hard to, especially with me, and they try to change my perspective. No, technology is great, Adrian. It's going to do this and it's going to do this. I'm like, yeah, I see that and I love that. But to me, that feels like a 20-80 split. That feels like 20% benefit and 80% like negative. I'm change my perception by all means. But I like what I've seen about it. It's basically it's reinstating what I already believed anyway. That I watched this film called, I think I told you about it, called The Circle, with Emma Watson.
Yes, you told me.
Yeah, and that film worried me because I feel that it's not really fantasy. I feel it's the truth.
Mhm.
And I just don't like the idea of technology creeping too much more into our lives.
Mhm.
I think where we're at right now, I think that's more than enough.
Mhm.
I understand, again, I reiterate, I understand the positivity, the positive things from it. And I don't decry that at all. I use it. I appreciate it. It's fantastic. But I am worried about the negative aspects of it.
I agree, and I think there's definitely pros and cons of technology.
Let me tell you why I'm worried about it. It's because I don't think human beings have the right mentality, or even better than that, we don't have the right self. We don't have enough. Perhaps we don't have any. We don't have self-discipline to deal with it. When AI becomes far more sentient, I don't think we just love it. We're just whooping and going, yeah, this is great. Look what I built. Yeah, well, yeah, I'm not convinced that thing is gonna serve you as well as you think it is.
Yeah.
And anyway, even if it wasn't going to be like some Terminator thing in the future, even if not, let's just say that technology makes us lazy. Let's also say that technology has permeated every single minute of our day. It's really hard to peel yourself away from your phone or your computer. You know, when I was growing up, we didn't have this problem. And now, you know, we were sold this idea. Computers are going to make your life easier. You're going to have so much time in your hands, you won't know what to do with it. That hasn't happened at all. Instead, you're seeing newspaper articles where employees are even on the beach on their holiday are still having to reply to emails. I mean, it just doesn't stop. Because you are connected, you are expected to stay connected. And these are the downsides to it. These are the dark sides to it.
I think, yeah, you have to kind of be mindful, don't you? Try and limit and balance it all out. I think
you have to, personally, but I'm talking about business. When does business say we can use this to really get one over on our employees? A friend of mine, you know, he was happy that his boss went away for 2 weeks to Mexico. He's not happy now because she's on his case, even from the beach in Mexico. What are you doing? I want to see you. You know, I'm zooming him, making sure that he was in the office, not at home. And I just thought, oh, good grief. This is not a good way to use technology. This is certainly not a good way to use your holiday time. But this is what it does to us. We don't have the self-discipline to walk away. We don't have the self-discipline to leave it alone.
I caught myself when I was brushing my teeth last night, and I was brushing my teeth and I was on my phone. I was just checking something, and I kind of something clicked in my head, and I was like, I'm on my phone whilst I'm brushing my teeth. I don't need to be doing this. And
Come on now.
I threw my phone out. I threw my phone like to the side, and I was like, I'm just going to brush my teeth and just you know, because I noticed that, you know, that you have like a sense of clarity sometimes, and you can get ideas if you're just in the shower or you're just brushing. Do you know what I mean? Like little tiny.
Well, I mean, they're making these things waterproof, and when like my mobile phone, which is great because I'm prone to drop it somewhere where I shouldn't. Probably I go on long walks and I walk near rivers and lakes and streams and stuff. It's very possible I could just drop it, but in a puddle or even a stream. But I now believe that they made it waterproof because people are going to drop them in the toilet because they just can't stop themselves from being on that phone. Or even worse, they're using it in the shower. I'm like, come on, you know, look, let's go back to having phones not waterproof.
Yeah.
Let's take this out of the potential equation that people are using it in the bathroom. You shouldn't be using it in the bathroom. Leave it. Just leave it alone.
Yeah.
Put it down.
I
just for 5 minutes.
Yeah. I remember my friend at school dropped it. I had one of those flip phones, and he dropped it in like a pond at school or something.
Yeah.
And you could see it in the water, and someone phoned him, and it still rang under the water. And I was like, "Oh my god, it still works!" Like, you could shoot it, and it probably still work. You see these,
but in those days, we made things to last. In the old days,
like those Nokia phones, you charge it once, it lasted 2 weeks.
We used to call those the brick because I mean, you could do anything with those things.
Yeah, it's crazy.
Yeah, but yeah, we have to be careful about how much we let technology into our lives. We really do. But that's a whole other conversation.
No, definitely. That's it. No, it's and as well, but no, like my phone's on like 10% now. But no, Adrian, it's been a pleasure talking to you, and I feel like we've really touched base on important topics, and had a really good discussion on different things that really need to be spoken about and talked about, which kind of aren't always
communication. I think it's my pet subject. Communication. I love talking about how we communicate with one another. I think it's essential. I've learned so much about communicating, as I said before, through my job, dealing with people at both ends of the spectrum of the judicial system. My wife is South American, and her English isn't 100%, and we have to try and have a relationship and be careful that we understand each other. So communication is part and parcel of my everyday life. I live it, I breathe it. So yeah, if I can offer anybody any help in that regard, then that's what I'd love to do, and that's why I love talking about this subject today with you, Adam. So thank you so much for inviting me on again. Invite me on anytime you want. I love your shows. I love your podcasts. I think they're really, really great.
No, cheers, Adrian. And you've always got a place on my show, and I'm grateful that we can have these conversations, and we can we have this relationship, and we can talk about these things. I think it's really important, to be able to do this.
Definitely.
Yeah, but you look forward to next time, and I wish you all the best with your day and what you're doing.
Thanks, Adam. Great as always. See you soon.
No, you're welcome. Take care.